Hello friends, Miko here from Team Unbox, and this is my current iteration of currently one of my favorite decks in the format, and that's Dual Threat Ira. This deck got me into the 9th place at the biggest RTN in the world, which happened at Unbox, but unfortunately I didn't make the cut, despite starting 5-0 and then losing the last two rounds. So I'm a bit sad about it, but I had a lot of fun with the deck. Dual Threat was introduced to me by Justin, who told me about using it, especially if I'm playing Pouncing Paws. According to him, if I'm playing Pouncing Paws, there's no reason not to run Dual Threat. Turns out he was right about it. It was able to expand her gameplay in the sense that you can now race some of the other decks in the format, and you can now go aggressively against some of the slower decks in the format that Ira is having a hard time against. The first iteration of the deck runs Scar for a Scar. I contemplated about going on a more aggressive route with Dual Threat, but I figured out that I won't be able to race some of the actual faster decks like Syndra and Aurora. So I might as well just stick to what Ira does best, which is slowing down the game, getting a lot of value over the course of long-ish game with her hero ability, and then making full use of her defensive suite of Flick Flacks, Sync Blows, and of course the new Shelter from the Storm. The core of this Ira list hasn't changed much. It's very similar to the Ira list that I bought in Battle Hard Atlanta, where I ended up in the top 8. And this is mostly derived from Shama Yamamura's initial Ira lists. So his mid-range Ira is based a lot from looking for a scrap and other attack actions that either disrupt or get you more value than usual when they meet certain conditions. So, for example, in the case of Bittering Thorns, it becomes above rate if the opponent lets it hit. In the case of looking for a scrap, it becomes above rate if you're able to banish a 1 power card and give it go again. And in the case of Spinning Wheel Kick, well, it's more of a general purpose tool that works well with Flick Flack, and sometimes it combos with itself if you're able to draw it, but it's good to have in the deck regardless. Against the faster decks, you can side it out and then put in more disruption like Weakest Link or Erase Face. And against the slower decks like Verdance, Florian, or even other defensive decks where you have to go all aggro like Enigma, you can just side it in. It's just another 4 breakpoint go again attack. That's on rate by itself. So let's start first with its equipment suite. It doesn't change a lot from the Ira decks pre-hunted. So you get your Fyendal Spring Tunic, which in this kind of deck works a lot better than a Blood Splattered Vest because we're aiming for a bit of a longer game, and we plan our offense around the Tunic counter rather than whether or not our Flick Knives or our Dagger will hit. Harmonized Kodachis are, of course, Ira's default weapons. We still use Massive Momentum to try to get mass triggers. It's still our best on hit to make the opponent use cards from their hand and possibly mount a less powerful offense, which means that we can use less cards from our hand to block it, and then we can use the full value of our remaining 2 or 3 card hand. Pouncing Paws, of course, used to be the default choice for Ira because actually that's the best boots that we have. That's a defensive value. Some builds use Snapdragon Scalers, but those decks are built differently. Before, Pouncing Paws is just for the 1 armor and the occasional use of the Tiger tokens when you pair it with like a blue Pouncing Key or even Mauling Key. But now, with Dual Threat, the Tiger token has a primary role, either being the one that triggers the attack action condition or the recipient of its +3 buff, depending on how you want to play it out. For example, you have a 2 card hand of a blue and a Bittering Thorns. So what you will want to do is Kodachi for 1, Bittering Thorns for 5, go Dual Threat if it's in your arsenal or in your hand, it's 3 card hand, and then Kodachi for 4, and then Tiger for 3 from the Pouncing Paws. So because of Pouncing Paws, your first Dual Threat is almost always active. So all you need to do is just pair it up with a good attack action. And the best thing about it is that it costs 0, so you don't need to spend more than 3 resources to activate Dual Threat. And of course, we've been praying for an appropriate arms for Ira for a long time, but for now, we just have to make do with Tiger Stripe Shuko. It has its occasional use once in a while, but to be honest, it's just there for the 2 block value, which still helps a lot when it comes to blocking relevant on hits, preventing crush effects, or even just blocking some chip damage. Now, as for the rest of the deck, it's a fairly popular list and has been explored at length already for months now. So I'm just gonna talk about some of the key cards in the deck. The very first card we start with is Dual Threat, which is the centerpiece of the deck. It's a lot more useful than when I first thought about it. Actually, when Hunted came out and Dual Threat was spoiled, I was like, kind of reminds me of Prismatic Ley Lines. So I didn't really look much into it. But thankfully, Justin did. And when he told me about it, he completely sold me on it because it's a 0 for 6 and Ira can meet its requirements fairly easily. And not only that, it actually empowers your whole offensive strategy because you can go like Kodachi for 1, Tiger Token for 1 with Ira's ability, Dual Threat, Kodachi for 4, and then with your remaining resource, you can either like Sensor for 8, or if you have a Tunic resource, you can do CNC for 9. That's a lot of value for a 3 card hand. At its worst, Dual Threat is a 3 block, so it's still good. At its really absolute worst, you can pitch it and get 2 resources. So you can do Kodachi for 1, Kodachi for 2, or like Kodachi into Sensor for 6. But you're better off just stocking it in your arsenal if you can, and then play it for its full value. However, you don't really have to use it for its full value. What Justin told me, and actually this is what really entirely sold me on the card, is that you can just play it for its attack action buff. So if you have a 2 card hand with CNC and Dual Threat in your arsenal and a blue, you can do Kodachi for 1, play Dual Threat, and then you can play CNC for 10 along with Ira's ability. That's also a really devastating play. So, I mean, it's a 3 card 11, which is underrated. But when you consider the on hits, the destructive on hits of the cards that you are buffing with Dual Threat, even by itself, so like Sensor, CNC, Weakest Link, or Erase Face, it's very likely that it will hit. There are some cases where you can play Dual Threat as a sort of a nimblism and still get a lot of value from it. So yeah, there we go. Blood Rush Bell for Ira. Next thing I'd like to talk about is Sound the Alarm. And this is personally my new favorite card for Midrange Ira because it costs 1, attacks for 5, and defense for 3, which is what we want to see paired with one of our blue hands. And in addition to that, it kind of helps a lot in matchups that has a lot of attack reactions. When you are fighting against Dorinthia and Nu, and right now I think it's Arachne Marionette also has a lot of attack reactions, the chances of catching that they have 1 in hand is very high, and it will enable you to search for something like Wax On. Or if you're using Wax Off also in the same deck, you can try to search for the other half and pair them together for a Zen State token. Or you can try to search for Shelter from the Storm so that you can use its instant ability to like shut down Noose Daggers or Arachne's Daggers, right? And what's great about it is that since its ability is very linear, it's very easy to side out. So when you know your opponent doesn't have any attack reactions, just side out Sound the Alarm, slap in the relevant attack action from our sideboard, and then we're good to go. And of course, at its worst, you can block with it for 3. So if you get like multiple 1-for-5s in hand, it's very easy to just throw it out, especially if it's not relevant in the match. And finally, we move on to Pain in the Backside. So this is the latest addition to the mid-range Ira dual threat deck, and to be honest, I feel like I'm really late to the party. Dagger Iras everywhere have been raving about this card for the longest time. Before Pain in the Backside, the card that was in this slot was Scar for a Scar because it's also a 0 cost, and then if you activate its Go again, it's a great card to fulfill dual threats condition. So you can go like Kodachi for 1, Scar for 5 with a Go again, dual threat, Kodachi for 4, and then like Sensor for 8. So all of it will fit into 1 blue resource because Scar for a Scar costed 0. But what I noticed is that as I play with Scar for a Scar in mid-range Ira, it made me get greedy in the sense that I took damage in some turns where I shouldn't be because I just want to activate Scar for a Scar's Go again and then try to end the game right there and then. So I've been searching for a really good head jab to replace Scar for a Scar. So the second best one that I've tried was 100 Winds because it's also a combo card which works well with Flick Flack that could also combo with itself, or if you're willing to add Winds of Eternity, yeah, it could combo with it as well. So if you don't have pain in the backside, that's probably the next best alternative. So you can do stuff like Kodachi for 1, Bittering Thorns for 5, Dual Threat, Kodachi for 4, 100 Winds for 6, and then finish off with Winds of Eternity for another 4. That's your 5-card plate for a lot of damage. But if you want to play a bit more conservatively, then Pain in the Backside is your best alternative to it. Because what Pain in the Backside does is usually you will use it as your second attack and it will deal 5 damage if it's not blocked. Same with Scar for a Scar. And the difference is that it has a natural go again. So yeah, as for the rest of the deck, it plays like your normal mid-range Ira, wherein you try to block with 2 cards and then play out your 2-card hand, but with the additional angle of being able to keep more cards in hand and take more damage, but you're gonna hit back hard because of dual threat. So as for the sideboard, I've changed it a lot since the Battle Hardened Atlanta. Of course, I kept Erase Face and Weakest Link because it's the most relevant sideboard cards right now with all the Auroras, News, Zens, and now Cinderas going around. I reduced the double strike count to just 1 for the rare Enigma that comes along. Also, it's a great card if I want to be more on the offense, so I can threaten another mass trigger. Amnesia, I want to add all 3, but I only have 2, so I just added in there. It's great for Viserai, Vincent, of course Zen. Because you're playing with Pouncing Paws and Dual Threat, Arcane Barrier's slot switches to Nullrun Gloves, which isn't really much of a big change in the matchups that you need Arcane Barrier 1, like in Aurora. Or in exchange for 1 less armor, you still get access to Pouncing Paws and then you still get access to Dual Threat. Finally, I have Crown of Providence. This is the one that I'm currently testing. This is mostly for the new matchup, wherein skilled news sort of just blow through your arsenal with Command and Conquer, and they recur it with Codex of Frailty. Crown of Providence helps there. Also, when you're using Dual Threat, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to threaten a mass trigger. And in the new matchup, sometimes you're just left with a couple of cards in hand. So you're not threatening a mass trigger anyway, so you might as well just put a headgear that helps against Command and Conquer, and then just play for value throughout the whole game. So, yep, that's my updated dual threat Ira list. Probably be bringing this to the rest of the RTNs now that I have somehow made it to the Roll of Honor of Syndra last week when I used her. So now I'm trying to get my name into the Roll of Honor for the adult Ira. Okay, so that's it for my deck tech for Dual Threat Ira. I hope you guys have a great RTN weekend as well, and good luck and have fun. Take care.